Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another show. I'm going to be covering some PineCreek Doug content today. Let me get a few things switched around here. Apologies for the lighting. Again, this webcam turns everything red and pink, so it always looks like I'm about to have a stroke, which I guess is kind of fitting for my content. And it is gloomy as hell outside today. But with that being said, we are going to be getting into some shorts. These ones technically are always kind of tough for me to like share out because they're just constantly playing on a loop, which I haven't figured out how to get that to stop on the desktop version of it. But one of these days I'll figure it out. Let's see here. We'll try it this way. Actually, I think I might shrink myself down so that people can see the video as large as possible. I don't know how to display these in any different way either. So, but anyway. So I wanted to catch up on some PineCreek content. He's dropped a few shorts in the last couple of last week or so, and he's really kind of I think he's ratcheting up into like campaign mode. Like he seems to be kind of shilling a little bit for Trump. So we're going to start with a warm up. This is him. The title down below, if it's hard to read, Why People Laugh at Hollywood Talking Politics, hashtag Robert De Niro, Trump, MSNBC, wokeism, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. So play this one. And yeah, we'll see what this was. De Niro being interviewed on MSNBC.
You've played a lot of bad guys.
And by the way, let me jump into the private chat here and say hello here while I get this ready. Let's see here. Michael Deaton is here, first thing. Good to see you. Thanks for the reminder. Cutlery Duck is here. Good to see you as well. Clive Gordon is here. Jordan is here. Soulless Ape. Good to see you all. Joseph Cano. Glad you could make it. Uncle Charlie is here. Good afternoon in the UK. I hope your weather is better than mine in the Midwest right now. Kent Hovind survived. Hello from the Ozarks. I survived a flurry of tornadoes. Yeah, I think we got one in my state, in the southwest, Kalamazoo County area kind of thing, which is a little ways from me. But yeah, glad you guys survived that. I hope the damage isn't too bad. Stephen Wilk is here. And this dude, he has something else. Good to see you, Stephen Wilk. This dude, are you talking about PineCreek? Or are you talking about De Niro? Like some people think De Niro is something else, good and bad. 222 degrees in the UK. 22. That sounds about right. Yeah, 222. That might be, yeah, like, you know, Japan in July. And Gray Knight 777 is here. All right. Okay, so now we're going to jump into this one. So he's being interviewed. I forget the name of this. I'm blanking on her name, but anyway, she sat down for an interview, and he noticed is famously not into Trump. Wow, this is boring. I'm saying hello, Bart. Yeah, calm down, man. All right, here we go.
Yes. Would you ever play Donald Trump?
Never. There's nothing about him. There's not one redeeming thing in him that I can see ever.
So I just want to say, like, Doug editing that in there, it's like, okay, so what you're saying is, like, okay, De Niro's a hypocrite because he wouldn't play Trump in a movie, but he would play Al Capone. But you could just as easily take this splicing in as like, wow, he's saying that about Trump, and he played Al Capone. So what does that say? Like, I mean, this could go either way. So this really isn't landing all that well, but okay, let's go.
Now, it's funny. I was just thinking that he actually became president. He could have done good things. Instead,
now in his defense, he did pass one. Well, he signed it in because it was already getting passed, but it was the incarceration reform law. It was kind of a recidivism based law. He did support that. He did sign that in, and by most everybody's standards, that was a good piece of legislation. So he did at least one good thing. If you were if you were on Wall Street or one of these finance guys, I think that you probably thought his tax cut was pretty good too. Like any tax cut generally from some conservative finance guys is considered a good thing. So they'd say that was great. So depending on your perspective, he did a couple of good things. I don't think the tax cut was warranted. That's just usually what Republicans do if they get in. They try to do something like that, pass a tax cut, a deregulation bill. It stokes the free market, quote unquote, for a little bit, and then you start hearing whisperings about, the cat food commissions, how your grandma is going to have to take a cut in Social Security payments to pay for that. All of a sudden, they become revenue hawks.
He had to do it all wrong. I don't think they understand.
So the poverty rate in 2019 at an all-time low. That's probably true. This 10.5 is going into 2020. I'm not sure how far into 2020, but the poverty rate for kids I know dropped really low because of some of the aid packages that they passed as we were going into the pandemic. So yeah, you would expect to see that, which they then clawed back. And then I can't even remember what percentage of kids ended up technically back under poverty and food insecure again, but they did it.
How dangerous it will be if he ever, God forbid, becomes president. In Nazi Germany, they had it with Hitler. They don't take him serious. He looks like a clown, acts like a clown. Mussolini, same thing. These guys, I don't know why they look like.
I don't think. My thing is, I don't think DeNiro thinks that he looks like that clown. Can you straw man with a picture? I think PineCreek just did it.
Clowns, but it would be chaos beyond our imagination.
So it might be. I don't know if it's beyond our imagination because there's plenty of people contemplating it. But my response to that, and I left a comment in there, was to say like, well, I mean, it was chaos. I don't know if it was beyond our imagination, but he bungled a pandemic response, and there's lots of articles now, even in retrospect, showing how he did that. There's the whole auto coup that he was involved in, between very likely being directly involved with the fake electors and also stoking the sentiments and possibly even in the background coordinating with certain groups to arrange January 6th stuff. So yeah, auto coups and bungled pandemic responses. That was pretty chaotic. I mean, it was just a couple splashes of crazy, but no big deal. We shrugged it off. So that's that one. So that's just the warm up. All right. That's just Doug, trying to, these woke progressives, they just don't get it. They don't get it. Let's see. No, the 2019 poverty rate was not at an all-time low because the 2020 and 2021 aid packages cut it further, and that was due to liberal policies. Nice try, though. Yeah. I mean, essentially what was going on is there was an enormous amount of pressure on Republicans who were in charge from the public and then from Democrats on the other side. As they were, they really couldn't do anything about this, right? They were also getting concerns from, the market sector that was basically saying that the economy is going to tank if you don't do something to stimulate it. So yeah, there was a lot of public spending to go into. They basically took all those conservative kind of safeguards on unemployment insurance and stuff like that. All those got lifted. You didn't have to prove that you were looking, you were applying for X number of jobs every week or two, like many states have established per Republican guidelines. All that stuff was like, no, you're unemployed. There's a pandemic. Just file. You'll get the money. Eviction things were put on hold. All these moves were made. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I just got a notice from Taco. Okay. Thank you, Taco. I'm going to look forward to that, whatever video comes from that. All right, let's play this one. So I don't know how old this particular clip is, but this one that I'm going to be sharing here, let's get it up on the screen. That would help. Let's see. I think this one was from like last year. But Mike Johnson has talked about this again. It was just in the news just a day or two ago, actually. So I'm going to play this one, but this is if just 1% of illegal immigrants or non-citizens voted. Okay, So let's hear what Mike Johnson has to say about this threat.
Americans are deeply concerned about this, and it doesn't matter where you live and whether you're in a blue state or a red state, everyone's concerned. And due to the wide open border,
The
that
wide
the Biden
open border.
administration has refused to close. In fact, that they engineered to open.
They engineered to open. First of all, it's not wide open. There was a really good article from NPR 2 days ago, I think, that was talking about, they sent some reporters down there and they wanted to compare how easy it was to cross from north to south versus coming up from south to north. And they found that it was very, very different. Like they were waved through in Nogales, I think. They basically just walked in. They weren't even asked, like they weren't even asked to show their IDs for the most part. They're just like, hey, come on in. When they turned around to come back in, it was a little bit harder, and they could see people being held up by checkpoints. Like it was much more stringent. So this idea that it's just wide open is an exaggeration. The fact that they're saying that it was engineered to open, also not accurate. So Mike Johnson is just spinning.
We now have so many non-citizens in the country that if only 1 out of 100 of those voted, they would cast hundreds of thousands of votes. And since our elections are so razor thin in these days that we're in, and just a few precincts in a few states decide the makeup of Congress and who is elected to the White House, this is a dangerously high number, and it is a great concern to millions and millions of Americans. It could obviously change the outcome of our elections, and this is not an empty threat or concern.
It is an empty threat. It's not a concern, mostly because there's already legislation in place to prevent this. Clinton passed a law in 96. I forget that it has a large title, but it prevents non-citizens from voting. The interesting thing about what he's saying here is like, well, there's just so many non-citizens here. They break it down. I think the estimate is that there are 25 million non-residents living here. And there are 11 million, I think, what they would call illegal. That's estimated. Now, I don't know if the illegal or undocumented ones are people that have slipped through the cracks, or if those figures are accounting for people who came in and requested asylum. So they're here illegally, but they don't have any permanent documentation yet. That's always kind of flaky. So if anybody knows better and wants to give some clarification on, but for whatever reason, they make this distinction. The interesting thing that he's saying here, he's like, well, if even just 1% of these people that are coming across the border, well, okay, if this is a concern, we know what the rate of voter fraud is. It's quite low, and that's attempted voter fraud because they catch the ballots usually and throw them out. Right. It's pretty efficient. So we have a rate for that. If he's concerned about the number of people who've just recently come in, why isn't he concerned about the 25 million that are already living here as permanent residents? People like, formerly, Doug. Doug just became a citizen, and congratulations on the citizenship. I think he just became a citizen last year or the year before. But up until then, he was living here as a permanent resident, meaning he did not have access to the polls. He could not vote in federal elections. And that needs to be emphasized because in some municipalities, depending on where you live, you might get the chance to vote for city council or something like that. But as far as I know, there's only a handful of cities that do that. Cano asks, can permanent residents, legal residents vote in a federal election? No, they can't go and vote for president. They can't vote for Congress and Senate. There is no law from the federal government barring states from allowing permanent residents to vote, but no state has done that. Several cities, though, like Oakland, San Francisco may have reversed their policy, but I think Oakland still has it. Possibly Baltimore, they allow permanent residents, or what we would call a non-citizen resident, to vote in municipal elections. So that's really the only caveat there. So if you're interested, all you got to do is Google non-citizen voter law 1996, and you will get the information that you need on the 1996 legislation that Bill Clinton signed in that took care of most of this. This is not a legitimate concern, and even the way Johnson is framing it is not real. I was curious about what would happen if I got into the comments over here. And I just kind of mentioned this one. I said, the increases in people coming here have been the result of refugees seeking asylum. They're here legally waiting for their court dates, but they have no right to vote and no access. What Johnson is implying would require a level of coordinated voter fraud That's likely impossible due to our patchwork election system. Now, I'm not the only one saying this. This is based on my own experience of voting, my knowledge of local voting processes because of volunteers that I am related to and know who have done this and have explained the system in depth to me. They obviously vary from county to county and state to state, but again, that just, the patchwork thing. But if we know that the rate of voter fraud attempted, right, there's a difference between, this needs to be emphasized, there's a difference between a vote cast and a vote counted. And the vote fraud that we have is usually based on someone attempting to cast a vote and it gets caught and it gets chucked out. All right. And the system seems to be pretty good at catching those, because one of the tougher ones to catch are people voting with the credentials of a deceased relative. And if they're recently deceased, that can be an easy one that can slip through. And oftentimes those ones are caught. In fact, I think of the three, I think it was in the 2016 election in Georgia, they caught three incidents of voter fraud, and two of them, I think, were voting for Trump, but they were voting on behalf of deceased relatives, and they caught them after they had, they voted, they were able to do that. But that was as far as they got. So Doug came back with this response: 1% is coordinated voter fraud. About 10 to 20% of people in the U.S. commit insurance fraud, those who submit claims. Is that coordinated? If that, he's making fun of me there. If non-citizens voted, would you desire legislation to prevent it? Yes, but we already have it. So and the other problem isn't that, like, it wouldn't bother me if not some non-citizens got through the polls and cast a vote. What would bother me is that you didn't have systems in place to make sure the vote was removed and discarded. I don't care if somebody casts the vote. I care about the system being resilient enough to identify it and remove it. That they can do that through registration rolls, etc. Those most ballots are counted multiple times. This thing is kind of confusing here because I think he's trying to clarify that it is not 10 to 20% of people in the U.S. commit insurance fraud. The estimate is believed to be that anywhere from 10 to 20% of claims filed are fraudulent. You can't get 10 to 20% of claims filed means that 10 to 20% of people, all like American people, commit insurance fraud. This is just a clumsy way of saying it. And I think that's why he put in parentheses, those who submit claims. No, it's the claims. The claims are fraudulent because the claims aren't going to be coming. That's not going to be 10 to 20% of people. It's 10 to 20% of claims. Some of those claims are coming from the same people. Right? You're going to have multiple claims from one person, maybe somebody who's been committing some kind of serial fraud. And that's insurance fraud. And that required the purchase of insurance. So again, like, you had to have the insurance in order to attempt to defraud it. You have to be able to get registered in order to cast the vote. And then the vote actually has to be counted. So you have a 3-step process when we're talking about voting. So this just doesn't make sense. Now, at some point, he responded to someone down here. My brother was telling me about this. I was going to find it right here. So Mike Johnson, of all people, should know that the National Voter Registration Act of 93 requires states to use a common voter registration form, which includes, under penalty of perjury, an attestation that the applicant is a U.S. citizen. Also, while not required by federal law, most states also verify citizenship by checking against federal databases such as the Social Security Administration. Others verify citizenship through forms of identification such as birth certificates or information provided on driver's license applications. So how are non-citizens going to vote? And this person's only talking about 93. That was the one, Clinton signed that one in 3 years before the 96 one. That was designed to streamline the federal registration form to kind of make it consistent across all the states. And it did put in this information. You were attesting that by registering to vote, you are a U.S. citizen under penalty of perjury. So in order to, since 93, if you're registering to vote and you're not a citizen and you know that, you've just committed perjury. Then you're committing another crime if you actually, for some reason your registration goes through and you manage to cast a vote, which I don't even know what the rate is of people who manage to fraudulently get registered and then cast a vote and then got it counted. My understanding is it is vanishingly low, vanishingly improbable. So PineCreek comes back with, one would have to be very naive to think that people don't lie or states don't verify. I had a social security number and driver's license for about 10 years prior to becoming a citizen and could have easily voted. I didn't. Yes, I agree. Maybe in the state of Arizona, I think was where he's been most of his life, he could have easily voted. Maybe he could have easily voted, but not if he wasn't registered. I don't know how easy it would have been for him to register to vote. And let's say that he did. Well, he committed a crime by registering. Then if he went in, I don't know if they would check that and catch that, but let's say that he did cast that vote. I don't know if that vote's going to count. He has to get through a lot more hoops than he's talking about. If 10 to 20%, he repeats this again, if 10 to 20% of people who file an insurance claim commit insurance fraud, that is not that rate. It is not 10 to 20% of the people are committing insurance fraud. It's 10 to 20% of the claims filed. Some of those claims, multiple claims, can come from one person. That is a goofy thing to say. So what percentage do you think commit voter fraud? This doesn't follow. Just because you're likely to commit one crime, even if you were to grant, like, okay, 10 to 20% of the people who file an insurance claim commit voter fraud of some kind, it doesn't follow that they'd be willing to commit the act of perjury, lying about registering to vote, and then turning around and then committing another crime by actually voting, risking getting caught both times. By the way, watch the link in the description box that goes into some of the issues you brought up here. That I didn't see. And that's pretty much it for that one. So, oh, wait. This person asks, how are they supposedly voting? And he says, like anyone else, I lived in the U.S. for many years as a non-citizen, had ID, and could have easily voted. I didn't. Maybe, maybe he could have easily voted. He would have been committing multiple crimes in the attempt. The question to ask Doug, says, are you saying that someone who is a legal non-citizen who has an ID, yourself, is comparable to a illegal non-citizen without an ID? And he says, of course not. I was much, much better. But he wouldn't have been if he had attempted to vote as a permanent resident. He would have been a criminal. And so this guy's, but we're talking about the two's ability to vote. If they're comparable, your reply doesn't make sense. You said you didn't vote. So, yeah, this makes zero sense as far as this is not a concern. This is Mike Johnson and Republicans trying to stoke fears in the American public by saying, well, wait, what if these people did that? The reason that I said it would imply coordination is because if you have a rate of, and you can find this if you go and look it up, the rate of voter fraud per election. According to let's see, I think this is one of the first ones. Heritage Foundation has one on this as well. I think it is on the Brennan Center for Justice, Debunking the Voter Fraud Myth. Let's see. The report received elections, and this is from, I think, 2022. The report reviewed elections that had been meticulously studied for voter fraud and found incident rates between 0.0003% and 0.0025%. Given this tiny incident rate for voter impersonation fraud, it's more likely, the report noted, that an American will be struck by lightning than he will impersonate another voter at the polls. So that's how low it is. If you had an election year where that rate jumped to several thousands of times higher, because for whatever reason, a large group of non-residents decided to just go out and vote, to all commit the crime of voter fraud en masse, that it would blow up an election. Well, first of all, most of them are going to get caught. Second of all, people are going to wonder, why did they all decide to go do this now in basically in a wave of criminality when it hasn't been done before? Remember, the current number of people that have come in here, there's been a big wave of people that have come in due to refugee crises and normal immigration patterns, and an uptick in normal immigration because of Title 42 keeping it suppressed during the pandemic. But with those numbers, you already had something like 20 to 25 million non-residents already here. So why is it a concern for the new wave coming in? You already had permanent non-residents living here. Why wouldn't they turn around and juke this number up? And again, the reason that they have this incident rate is because they can tell that voter fraud, mostly because they caught the ballots in time. So, and if you're interested in that, I can actually remove this out. Let me present that screen. Right here. BrennanCenter.org cites, debunking the voter fraud myth. Quite a bit of links in there. Give this a look. This one's pretty good. And it breaks down quite a few statistics over several years. Give it a look. So that's that one taken care of. Mike Johnson is talking out of his ass. PineCreek is providing cover for that for whatever reason. There's absolutely no reason to do this. And then he's trying to engage in a hypothetical. Are you Democrats out there concerned about this? I would be concerned about permanent non-residents, non-citizens voting if they were allowed to, because that would be a remarkable change in the law that we currently have. So yes, that would concern me. When I see statistics of that happening, I'll be concerned. Including the last election, those statistics do not warrant any concern at all. So unless something radically changes, this is Mike Johnson setting up an appeal so that when Trump loses, they don't have to accept the results, because they're getting cagey about that again. They don't have to accept the results because they can claim that this was Biden engineering a broad open border to allow non-residents and immigrants in that would then turn around and vote in waves that we've never seen before. So they're getting ready. This is just pre-spin, so they can spin the rest of the crap later. Colorado, oh no, Doug defending Johnson. Yeah. Those few major frauds that have happened have primarily been perpetrated by Republican political groups. Yeah. I can't remember which Republican group that it was that threw a fit, and they were going out and either it was the drop boxes that California had put out during COVID. And conservatives were just saying, well, this is enough, because these people are going to take advantage of this new convenience. All these people are going to turn around and vote for Biden, right? Which is an implicit acknowledgement that if people are given the more access to the polls, they're going to vote for the person that they want more, which isn't Trump. So it was an incredible implicit, acknowledgement of what was going on. And then they went and they were either tampering with the boxes or disappearing them or trashing them or something. That was, God, when was that? Mid 2022 or mid 2020. Sorry. Heritage found about 200 fraudulent votes over 10 years of federal elections. Yeah. Heritage Foundation, not known to be in the bag for progressive woke leftists, just to let, PineCreek know and others. So, Rodents, I'm more concerned about the number of illegal Canadians coming across our open northern border. Yeah, I mean, why not militarize that too? I mean, Doug's got all these plans. He's like, I'm voting for Trump because he's going to put a soldier shoulder to shoulder, from Tijuana to, the Gulf of Mexico. And it's like, why? Why not the northern border? Oh, well, what? Yeah, okay. So... all right. So following up with that is this one. I'm gonna show this one. This one I have to show with the sound off because he included a licensed song in it. And knowing my luck, I will end up getting dinged for it. So share. Let's turn the sound off. And this one, please, Democrats, does this trend concern you? So he's got a trend here. He wants to show immigration, crime, border crisis, law and order. Criminal non-citizen statistics. This one's going to be a little bit boring, so I'm going to talk right through it because the song in question, I believe, is Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. So not the lyrics, just the song. Hopefully that sound is not coming through. Will you guys let me know if it is? Can you hear any music at all? I'll pause it there until I get confirmation. It shouldn't be. So he starts off right here. These are coming from U.S. border crime statistics. And I'll be sharing that screen up here later. assault, battery, and domestic violence. Now, you can't really tell, like, these are arrest statistics based on people, immigrants here, right? I think that's how he put it. Let me see if I can go back on this. I hate these shorts for this. So, well, yeah, it looks like it's gone way up. Oh, homicide's gone way up in Biden's 3 years versus Trump's 4-year average. Sex offenses, okay. It's a lawless land, folks. Source, okay. The criminal non-citizen statistics from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So I'm going to play this through. Arrests of individuals with criminal convictions, total criminal convictions by type. And it's giving fiscal year, you know, whatever, laying out. These are the criminal convictions by type. Mhm. Okay. I'm going to play this part through here again. Criminal non-citizen statistics, U.S. Border Patrol enforcement. Does he put any context on? He does not add any additional context. So it just sounds okay. This is what's happening, right? Why are these statistics happening? Because he's extrapolating these comparisons based on the year's comparisons between when Biden was in office versus when Trump, and these would be accurate. They appear accurate. The problem is what is it that they're actually saying? So I am going to remove this one. And we're going to show the source. All right, there it is. Criminal non-citizen statistics. Following is a summary of U.S. Border Patrol enforcement actions related to arrests of criminal non-citizens for fiscal years 2017 through 2024. All right. Records checks of available law enforcement databases following the apprehension of an individual may reveal a history of criminal convictions. The conviction information is recorded in a U.S. Customs and Border Protection database from which the data below is derived. Here's the key part. The term criminal non-citizens refers to individuals who have been convicted of one or more crimes, whether in the United States or abroad, prior to interdiction by the U.S. Border Patrol. In other words, they committed these crimes before Border Patrol prevented their movement one way or the other, north to south, south to north. It does not include convictions for conduct that is not deemed criminal by the U.S. Arrests of criminal citizens are a subset of total apprehensions by the U.S. Border Patrol. So what does this mean? If you check his video, he starts having interactions. And I wondered if he really believed this. Well, if these are the crimes that are happening from the people that have been allowed in, these people came in, they are individuals that were allowed into the country, committed crimes, and then, oh my God, Biden is he's basically allowing America to turn into a crime-riddled wasteland. These people are being caught. These are crimes they committed prior to interdiction by the U.S. Border Patrol. In other words, they are being picked up. These are being identified at the border. And you would expect these numbers to be low in 2020, which is 2,438, because people weren't really coming. We had a pandemic going on. And I think that these numbers might be a little bit artificially lowered because Title 42 allowed Border Patrol to just take the people and kick them out. People were not allowed to declare asylum, which was a little bit of a controversial move, but they were basically sent away. When they were sent back, they collected biometric data on them, but I don't think it counted as an arrest. Then by the time you get into 2021, you start getting a bigger buildup. 2022, obviously 2023, you get a wave because you had people that were forced back. In some of these statistics, some of the people that were not, there was pushback in 2020 and in 2021 about preventing families from coming over. Parents with kids, I think eventually there was a court ruling that allowed them to come through and declare asylum. But individual people, I don't think, had the ability to do that. By the time you get into 2022, well, really, it would have been the beginning of, let's see here. Well, no, by 2020, you had the election year. 2021, Title 42 was still in place. So one of the things that happened when Biden got in, on top of the usual campaign rhetoric, right? They were going to do something about Trump's just, kind of flat out denial of people. They were going to do some kind of reform. One of the things that they found internationally that was happening was that cartels and coyotes were kind of pitching services to people because there was a new administration in charge and now they could get through. It caused a little bit of confusion because up until 2023, the Biden administration kept Title 42 in place. And Title 42 was a health provision that the Trump administration used to deny asylum seekers from, I think, March of 2020 until it faded with the repeal of the emergency standards in January of 2023. So it was basically in effect for about 2 full years, 2.5. By the time it was over, once it faded with the other ones, that was it. People could then do what they did before, which was declare asylum. And then you started seeing the real uptick in 2023. Now, as for right now, we're at 8,799 for fiscal year 24 year to date. And I don't know when the date of this particular one is, but we're not even halfway through the year. So, but it was bound to be high. Because again, these aren't just normal immigration flows. These are immigration flows happening following a pandemic and following multiple refugee crises in multiple countries in the South. You had Honduras, I believe. Haiti had issues. Honduras had issues. I believe El Salvador had an uptick in political violence. I thought Nicaragua did too. There was a group of people from Guatemala that came over, I think, that might have been in 2016, 2017. And then obviously the Venezuela issue, which I think has been the biggest group. So that's it. The other thing but this is the number of people. These people are being identified as having this arrests, right? If they're crossing in, they're not going to be allowed in if they have certain criminal convictions, like domestic violence. They're not coming into the country. So it stands to reason that from here to here, you're going to see an uptick. If you have more people attempting to cross, you're going to see more arrests and more people being turned away because you're going to see more people with these kinds of records. The interesting number to look at is this crime, illegal entry and re-entry. It was all the way at 4,502. It's now up to 8,790. You would expect to see these numbers. Now, you see these numbers drop in 19 and 20. This is why I suspect Title 42 didn't count illegal entry and re-entry as arrests. It was kind of a catch and release thing. They'd grab them, fingerprint them, and ship them back. And it was one of the things that Title 42 was criticized for, because what they ended up seeing, that was 1 in 3 people who were being picked up during the time Title 42 was in place were on a repeat re-entry violation. What would have normally been a re-entry violation. They'd get a car ride back. They try again. They noticed that this re-entry offense was happening a lot more. But the fact that it doesn't really show up here, it's actually lower here, tells me that maybe Title 42 was kind of a way that those stats got juked. So, is this a problem? No. This is not the problem that you think it is, because this means that the border protection is working. They are identifying people with these convictions and ostensibly this would prevent you from coming in. In many cases, I think most of these, may possibly with the exception of illegal entry, but I don't think so, because the Biden administration tried to pass one that if you were caught on illegal entry and you were sent back, you couldn't try re-entry for another 5 years, even through a border check. And if you did, that itself was a crime. I don't know if that's still being upheld, but that was a pretty strict one. So I don't know to what extent this is preventing somebody from maybe requesting asylum, but some of the bigger ones, I think they do. You're not going to be eligible for asylum if you've got this kind of record. Plus, you also have to determine that you are in real fear for your life from the country that you're fleeing from. And if it's not determined that that's a legitimate fear, that asylum request probably isn't going to go through. That's, what is it, 74% are rejected? So, yeah. So I was promised a taco truck on every corner, and I'm deeply upset that I haven't received mine. Yeah. A new Mexican restaurant opened here 1 door down from our local McDonald's, and build that wall. Yeah. I could get a microwave breakfast burrito from McDonald's, or I could go to this actual Mexican restaurant or food truck and get real food. All right. So that's that. So that pretty much covers, yeah, Doug's stuff, other than this one, which I'm not entirely sure about. I'll present this one. This is a weird title. Why misinformation, quote unquote, must be allowed then and now. So if anybody knows about this a little bit better than I do, please let me know. But I'm gonna jump in. We're gonna wade in a little bit.
Drugs for animals and horse
and people telling them to. You know, you talk about like, you know, cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them.
I am taking a what do they call it? Like a regular dose, you know, whatever. They're trying to build up
Maintenance.
of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was
wasn't.
wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why?
What was
Everyone's
the
going
bad
to say
information?
Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians.
Injecting.
So that's an interesting way of. So I think clearly he's showing this to show that like Chris Cuomo has kind of flipped on the ivermectin thing. Which, okay, I think Chris Cuomo is kind of a dork. The ivermectin thing, like he's like, oh, I'm talking to clinicians who are saying that ivermectin can't hurt you. Well, that's an interesting lowering of the bar, because the hope during the pandemic was that ivermectin was going to be some kind of silver bullet for COVID. Either it would, if you took a maintenance dose, it would prevent you from getting COVID, or if you got COVID, it could be used as an effective treatment / cure. It neither treated the symptoms nor cured the virus, and it didn't show any kind of efficacy for help preventing you from getting the virus, which I think was actually, I think early on clinicians were thinking that it might help with that, because there was a theory that certain antiparasitics might help with preventing you from actually contracting a virus in certain circumstances. But I don't know that it's actually been established, and it doesn't look like it would have been established for ivermectin. So this misinformation that he's talking about, I remember when this came out, the information that was coming out from the FDA was like, look, we don't have any reason to think that ivermectin is effective. Don't take it, because a lot of people were running out and grabbing stuff that was formulated for vet care, which are going to be at dosages, you know, it's based on weight. So it's going to be based on dosages that are way high. The idea was like, don't you think I'm smart enough to cut that horse pill up into quarters? And they're like, well, a couple people weren't. They took the full dose intended for a horse. Right. And also sometimes quality control stuff on drugs like that is going to be a little bit lower for livestock than it's going to be for people. Sad to say, but plus there's the risk of side effects that come with taking too high a dose or taking it for too long, which they didn't seem to care about. The minor side effects of a vaccine, that's evidence that the doctors are trying to hurt you. Minor side effects from ivermectin, well, that's, you know, that's just the price you pay for safety and liberty. It was ridiculous. It was conspiratorial and stupid. Also, the other thing to do to remind people of is you don't want people during a pandemic rushing out to grab stockpiles of a medicine that is useful for certain things and start gobbling that up for no reason, risking complications. I mean, just to put this into perspective, one of the things that they noticed, this is a little bit more anecdotal, but it was something that I noticed from nurses that I spoke with around here. There was an uptick in people developing kidney stones from taking high doses of, I think it was a combination of vitamin C, vitamin D, and vitamin K all at the same time. And they started noticing that more and more people were having either kidney stones and gallstones, or kidney stones and maybe gallbladder inflammation. But all these things were ticking up. And I think they attributed it to the really high dosages of vitamin C. So, yeah, I mean, even just something like that, where people are taking a supplement that's easily available over the counter, led to side effects and led to medical conditions that could have been avoided if they had taken it easy. The ivermectin thing, one of those things too. Really effective medicine, really good for, I mean, it's used to treat river blindness, you know, hopefully before you go blind, you know, it's going to kill those worms. it's useful for those kinds of things. It's needed for those kinds of things. Having a bunch of yahoos taking it because they think it's going to prevent COVID, that's an
Injecting
inappropriate use of that.
drugs for animals.
So, yeah. So I advocate for letting them if they insist upon it. I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to go out and get your own, I mean, the trick is, like, you can't tell people that they can't go out and buy it if they can get it over the counter. But if it's a public emergency, you can tell people, look, we don't want to see you stockpiling the stuff for bad reasons, because you're going to make it more expensive or unavailable for treatments that, people who need it, for the treatments we know it works on, parasitic infections. Ivermectin used to damage women's reproductive systems. I think it can in high enough dosages. Yeah, that was one of the concerns. Oops, I had an app. I was surprised I hadn't seen you yet. Good to see you, Spooky. So yeah, that's I think I've caught up on most everything. There was one other that I was going to take a look at here from Doug. Let's get back into his channel. Oh, no, I don't think I can jump into this one, mostly because it's the it's a debate, I think, on Ryan Grim. Well, it's counterpoints, and it's between Destiny and somebody, and they're talking about Israel and Hamas, and it's just sort of a scream fest. Let's see here. I did think it was kind of odd. Doug did a couple response videos, and I'm always kind of weird about doing this because I'm in it. But I'll share the screen here. And I'm also going to throw this in there just in case anybody wants to come in and do kind of a call show thing. I should have put this in earlier. I forgot about it. Let me post that in there. And let me get in and tag it too. Apologies for the delay. Let's see here. All right. All right. So I got that pin there in case anybody wants to come in and chat or ask a question or anything like that. Maybe not Otangelo. I didn't let him in last time. I think he was quite upset, so I don't expect him to be around. Plus, it's early. If anybody doesn't want to come in because it's just too damn early, I also understand. No pressure to come on. But I thought this one was weird because all my recommended ones are shown here. That's good. You're trans for now, cis-affirming care. That's how he worded this one. I guess he thought he was onto something here. I don't understand why he thought that this was sort of an own. It ended up getting the context conversion therapy thing down below, which is interesting. But yeah, you're trans for now, cis-affirming care. There were a couple people in the chats that seemed to have a problem with the idea that, like I was talking about, if a child or an adult is having questions about their gender identity and they go to see a therapist and they're exploring this issue with them, and like Doug had said, one of Doug's hypotheticals was a guy that struggles with his identity for 10 years, but then reconciles that he's cis, and then he continues to live happily. Or at another point, that same point in his life, he received therapy, treatment, hormone replacement therapy, surgery, and then went on to live a happy life as a trans woman. And then tried to ask me if that indicated some kind of mistake, to which I was confused. Like, how did either one of them turn out to be a mistake of the person? I'm like, if anything, the guy spared himself 10 years of agonizing confusion by just going and getting the theory or getting the treatment. But then he came in with, but a lot of people seem to object to the fact that if you're getting care and the result of your therapy is you end up affirming your cis identity, that's still gender affirming care. Hey, Richard, good morning. How's it going?
Peace and respect, brother. Go on. I'm just bored. Thought
Okay.
you're worth talking to. What the heck?
All right. Yeah, it's even earlier where you are, isn't it?
I don't know where you are. It's 7 something here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm in an Eastern time zone. I'm over in the mitten state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about some of Doug's coverage lately, and especially on the trans issue, because he brought this one up, which I thought was weird because like he seemed to be kind of skeptical of it before, and I was like, it's if you're dealing with somebody who's confused, but they end up kind of coming back around to like, you know what, I think I am cisgender. That is part of the care that that person is receiving is still gender affirming care. If you get testosterone therapy in your 60s because you're very low T and you're getting that to kind of restore that, energy and vitality so you feel quote, more like a man, that is gender affirming care. Viagra is gender affirming care. Because some guys will say, well, no, I need it because that's how sex happens. It's like, no, you can have sex in a lot of different ways. You don't necessarily have to have sexual intercourse with your peen. But what the Viagra is
it would be very closed-minded to say something like gender affirming care is limited to trans.
And it seems to me that a lot of them are locked in that mindset. They're like, no. Gender affirming care is a visible male walks into the office and says, "Doc, I feel like a woman," and the doctor has no choice. But the doctor is shackled. They have to use their pronouns. They have to use the change name, and they have to they can't ask questions or do any kind of therapeutic investigation. They have to provide them hormones and surgery stat. And if they don't, they'll get sued. And it's like, that is not how medicine works at all. At all. And a lot of these issues, I really do feel like between this and sort of like the voting issues that people will bring up, it's not that I question people. I mean, it's one thing for people to not be really up on current events or whatever. That's one thing. But to wade into like a public policy debate and kind of reveal that not only you may not know that much about trans issues. That's one thing. I get that. It's a small part of the population. But to then kind of reveal that it sounds like you don't know how a hospital works or how a visit to a doctor works is something else entirely. So it's like, get that stuff straight before you start spinning a theory about, well, these doctors, look, Doug has admitted it. Doug has said, well, they're doing it for money. And it's just, why would these doctors, okay, why are doctors doing it in Canada then? If you're a doctor in Canada, you get, it's a single payer health system up there. You're getting paid one way or the other. There really isn't a monetary advantage to providing somebody with this kind of therapy or care, unless you believe in being a good doctor and providing care to all your patients equally.
Yeah, maybe it's their job. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to do their job and they believe in their calling. Yeah, it's a strange thing, and it seems to be really common with Americans. They're just like, well, there's a financial incentive for them to do this. Like, well, you could vote for a national healthcare system. Try that. We just get rid of then you get rid of it altogether. There's less of a financial incentive for these doctors to go out and transform your kids against their will. Like, I want to see evidence that that's actually happening, because that seems to be the big one. Like, well, look, if you're 18 years old and you got the money, you can do whatever you want. But I'm really concerned about what happens with the kids. This is a common thing that I hear from people. Mm-hmm. To which I say, your ethics stops at the government's recognition of your legal ability to vote and go to war. Like, you're concerned for kids, but you're not concerned for the adults that might also be like, no, I don't care about that. Buyer beware, all that good stuff. All of a sudden they become like an anarcho-libertarian. It's just like, whatever, okay. Sure. They got a sex change. It's no different than getting tattoos. Stay away from my kids. Like, okay. If you think that there's an ethical issue with this stuff affecting kids, you maybe ought to be at least a little bit concerned about how it's affecting adults too, and not just write it off as some kind of like transactional thing. The kid is an illegal adult. They can enter into contracts. They can purchase what they want as long as they're not hurting anybody, whatever. But in my house, until you're 18, I won't hear of it. It's just, yeah, that's just obstinance. That's not really a principled position.
Okay, this is probably at least a tangent and maybe even a completely different topic, but it seems to me that hormones have great effect on emotional states and how a person perceives reality. And thereby, if someone is unstable in there, I mean, I went through this with my ex-wife, wife at the time, where she had cervical cancer. She had to have her ovaries removed and was going through this 5-year instability where her hormone, I thought she was losing her mind. I don't know how we can say something like this person should make this decision if they're having those kinds of hormonal fluctuations.
Right, because either way, you're telling them that they're going to, there can be situations where people are in a medical circumstances where there is no good choice, and either way, you're basically making the decision like, you know what, there's bad aspects to either one, but I'm going to tell you that these are the ones that you should do, and it's like, well, I don't. Okay, to that effect, though, the interesting thing is that there are some of the effeminizing drugs that a man would go on for hormone replacement therapy, transitioning to become a trans woman. Those drugs are also used in some cases of prostate cancer. So, and you're using that ostensibly to save the prostate, to reverse the cancer, to save the guy's life, and to hopefully save the functioning of his genitalia. So the same feminizing drugs that would be used to help a man transition to a woman in a gender sense would also be used to affirm and prevent a disease that is going to potentially emasculate that man. So it's a nuanced area. And so it's like, okay, I remember there was somebody it was years ago, they were talking about passing laws. They were going to regulate the use of those hormones in certain circumstances, and those kinds of situations came up. They're like, it's sort of like the Plan B pill. They, there were anti-birth control advocates that were saying, no, we want to call that an abortifacient. It's like, okay, that if you try to get that thing classified as an abortifacient and then made illegal, that drug is used to help women overcome repeated miscarriages, especially if they tend to have miscarriages in the first trimester. A little bit of Plan B, it's a different dose, but a little bit of that drug can help them get over that portion of it and then finish carrying the child to term. And I remember arguing with some Christian activists about it, and they just shook their head and said that they didn't believe me. And I'm like, well, you need to look at drugs can often be used for more than one thing. Hormones definitely can be used for more than one thing.
Why the sudden denial other than, cognitive dissonance in the Christian group you were speaking of? I mean, a quick Google search would affirm or deny what you'd claimed. Yeah.
Well, and then they would come back and say, well, I don't know if that's really true. Or, you got activists on both sides, and maybe people are trying, what big Plan B is trying to push their pill to save babies when you think it's part of a conspiracy to kill them? Like, you have direct evidence that that's not what the drug is for, but you're calling it an abortifacient, and science is telling you it isn't one. We have abortifacients. Plan B is not one. It's like, it can prevent conception. They don't know if it terminate a pregnancy, and in many clinical senses of the drug's use, it encourages. It continues the conception. It will preserve the pregnancy. So yeah, those are inconvenient facts, I think, for people that are against birth control. AR says, I can't imagine eating my dog's heart guard, Ivermectin, is pleasant or effective. It's not. I've taken a nibble. Terrible salty
Why?
taste. I was curious.
Was that an accident? I mean, what the hell, man?
Oh, well, it wasn't a nibble. I exaggerate. I licked it, kidding.
Okay.
Kidding. Yeah. I don't even like handling those things half the time. They smell terrible. I'm surprised they can get dogs to eat them.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that dogs eat that I smell, and I think I would not eat that.
Yeah, one of my brother's dogs from a few years ago, he used to get him this stuff. I can't remember, the green cow, I think. It was a canned dog food, and it was made out of like nothing but organ meat. So it was like liver, spleens, just I don't even know where I think it was sourced out of Argentina or something like that. You crack that thing and it smelled like somebody had slaughtered a goat. But the dogs would immediately start drooling, like it was just a switch. They were all excited about it. I'm like, that smell is awful, but it's the same reaction I have when somebody cracks a jar of kimchi. I do the same thing. Like, for other people, they run screaming, but I love that stuff. Like,
I've heard that about kimchi.
oh, I love that stuff. Let's see. I'm late, but coming at you from Philly. Beautiful, godless morning out here. Gonna go get a coffee and a pretzel on my bike. Listening to this on the ride. Well, ride safely. That sounds pretty good. Coffee and a pretzel. Bond. Organs, delicious. The dogs thought so. I mean, yeah. People look at me like a freak because I want to eat, fermented cabbage buried underground. But dogs want to eat stewed organs. Good morning, Mr. Mowdy.
How are you?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. I saw that you were broadcasting and thought I'd chime in. And then I saw a link and I was like, when the fuck's the last time I hung out with Jefferson?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I had a pretty good time last week. It ended up going 4 hours. I ended up chatting with Bart, Barthology, Darth Dawkins' friend and fellow traveler. Stephanie Helms jumped in for a little bit. Pine Creek jumped in. We had a long conversation. So
how's Doug doing?
He's
still ripping on him.
Yeah, I was covering some of his shorts at the beginning of this, and then I had been shown he did a couple of videos that were excerpts of our conversation that we had last Saturday.
Okay.
So when we were talking about trans care, gender affirming care, and then we started. I don't even know how we got into it, but we ended up tangenting off into finance, like U.S. fiscal policy. I made the mistake of telling him that I'm into MMT, and he's like, "Oh, magic money theory," and I'm like, "Look, I get it. It's wonky. Gold bug types, orthodox economic types hate the stuff. I get it, but yeah." Well,
Quick public announcement for health and safety of the general public. If you get bone conductors, so you leave your ear canal and ability of hearing your surrounding free and open, you are much safer in public if you're listening to something with bone conductors than you are, say, anything else.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Because it doesn't block your ability to hear your surroundings, but you still have good hearing of whatever audio device audio thing you're listening to.
Yeah, that's going to be the wave of the future of the bone conducting.
Yeah,
because it's like there's sound in your head. It doesn't feel like it's coming from your ears. It's just your head is the transmitter, it seems like, or the receiver. And then everything else around you is just as audible. Whereas these, you can set them to block out the audio, which is also cool, depending on the function. Like if I'm on the train, I don't want to hear shit because there's babies crying, people having conversations, this, that, and the other. But if I'm walking in the streets of Philadelphia, I need to know what's happening in my fucking 2-foot proximity because people are idiots.
Precisely. That's exactly it. Yeah, I really recommend Aftershocks. I've had a pair for several years. The battery lasts quite well. It charges relatively quickly. The sound is great.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that technology started out initially with like special forces and stuff. It was for military applications, precisely because you could.
A lot of things are. Yeah.
Yeah, you could hear. You could whisper and keep a low voice, understand people in your communication network, but also still hear around you. People are talking about durian in the chat.
Durian. Has anybody here had it?
I have had it freeze dried and in a jelly cake.
Really? So I've had it at a Christmas New Year's party, and as soon as somebody cracked that open, first of all, if you don't know what a durian fruit looks like, it looks like something nature doesn't want you to eat. It is in a hard case with fucking spikes sticking out of it. Pretty much nature's way of saying, leave me the fuck alone. It smells like death, and the texture is viscous. It's viscoelastic. So it's like sulfur snot is what I call it. It smells like sulfur and has the consistency of snot. So I have a very fun story because I have friends that are in hospitality. Apparently somebody was working at a restaurant, a very bougie restaurant, where their dessert was a durian sorbet, right? Like that's how bougie it is. They tried to take durian and turn it into a sorbet. Look at that thing. Nature is telling you not to eat that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah,
wait, wait.
So
Doesn't nature put spikes on things that are delicious though? I like porcupine, for instance.
I mean, that's a fair point, but the problem with this is if you go through if you go through the trouble of cracking that thing open, that's not a prize inside. It's more pain and suffering. It's
Yeah.
an amazingly hostile plant. Like it's just like I'm surprised more people aren't actually like allergic to it. But then again, it doesn't really have to produce allergens because it's got
it has
this, and then
so
it has
many other
this.
protections.
Yeah. And it's weird that it's common for people to like you acquire a taste for this. And I knew kids from Singapore and Malaysia. And it was a lot more, it was like 50-50. Some of them were like, no, I never developed a taste for it, but I know friends that do. Others were like, oh yeah, I love it. Always love the candies, always love the cakes, love it. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. It is the freeze-dried one. I had a freeze-dried one and ate it. And my coworkers had done this together, and they all gagged on it. And then a year or two later, I had a bag of it, and they were like, "Are you going to try that on camera?" We were doing a Zoom meeting, and I did. I ate one, and I was like, "It's awful, but it wasn't nauseatingly awful." But somebody brought in durian cakes that they picked up from Costco. I got a nibble. And it went into my mouth and just as quickly came right back out into a napkin. Like, nope, that's awful. It was sticky. It was slimy. And that one had been processed a little bit and it was still gross. Just terrible.
What is this? Food for the desperate? I just if everyone thinks it's bad. Now I've never tried it, but
this is accurate.
It is
sulfur snot.
Sulfur snot. Oh, exactly. So let me tie up the story I was telling. So the person who's at the restaurant who sells the durian sorbet, apparently there was a big party. One of the people was super obnoxious, ordered the sorbet for everybody, and the waiter's like, just so you know, like durian isn't like it's sorbet, but it's like it's very. He's like, no, never mind, one for everybody. And this obnoxious guy took a sip or took a spoonful of it and puked his dinner out all over the table.
Oof,
Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Somebody had mentioned like the store. There's a store near me on the other side of town. It's a big Asian grocery, and they have the same signs on durian. It's no returns. They're like, we're telling you right now not to buy this. If you do, you cannot bring it back. You've been warned.
I mean, you can't even open it inside. Like cracking open a durian inside has ruined the inside of whatever domicile you're in. Because I mean, it just reeks. It's bad.
It's a weird combination. It smells rotten, but it also has this sickeningly sweet thing that I pick up on.
Yes.
That I have a real problem with. I had the same problem with certain. I got into. You might be interested in this. I got into fragrances a while back, Mouty, and started studying them and getting samples and stuff. I know this is part of your field, and I was playing around with them. And obviously, there's a difference between how they smell, in the air on paper on you
versus on you. Yeah.
And what I found out was that not only am I really sensitive to vanilla compounds, natural or especially synthetic, but when I wear them for whatever reason, that note will boost way past everything else. So I ran into these samples of some very expensive, very high quality. I got them on the cheap, tried them on at various points in time. If they had a vanilla note in them, and a lot of newer ones are kind of leaning into that more in like unisex.
Vanilla is pervasive in American cuisine and fragrance. You can't get chocolate without vanilla in it in America.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, like there's a lot of unisex profiles in like French and some American, well, everywhere, even in Italian ones. And I would wear them. Only the Italian ones would kind of stay balanced. But for whatever reason, if I put them on myself within about 2 hours, regardless of whatever fragrance it was, no matter how different it smelled initially in the air and on paper, it would always dry down and smell like a cheap vanilla air freshener on me. And I hate
vanilla's a bottom note. Vanilla's a bottom note. So like after everything of the middle and top notes fades away, all you're left with is vanilla. So maybe it's not so much that vanilla stands out. It might be the case that your skin metabolizes all the top notes faster.
That's probably it. Yeah. And most of the blends that I've tried, all those top notes just dissipate. And yeah, the vanilla just lingers. And I can't think of any other bottom note that actually stays on. Maybe the effect of maybe something like oud, something like that. But
eucalyptus is one of those fragrances. Eucalyptus, like we have several eucalyptus candles in the house, and we were burning one. We didn't like it, so we decided to like use the other, but it also had eucalyptus in it. And we're like, this is just as fucking bad as the other one. Like,
it just lingered.
But it just lingered. It was just like smelling a fucking unicorn's asshole. Like that's all that downstairs smelled like. It was just this eucalyptusy, like cloying.
A buddy of mine, a guy I worked with, he would do the gym thing in the morning and come to work. And after the gym, he'd hit up a steam room to relax for about 5-10 minutes after his workout. And while he was in there, if he was alone, he would carry in a tincture of eucalyptus oil. And the kind he used, I didn't think had a carrier oil in it. It was pure eucalyptus oil. And he'd throw that into something and then inhale the fumes. That would cling to him the entire day. By 5 p.m., he still smelled like, eucalyptus. Like you smell like a koala breath. Like you just
Are you trying to attract koala bears or something?
Yeah. That was crazy. By the way, hello, Simus, and good afternoon to you. Or good evening.
Hello. You guys are just lining the jokes up, and I'm on mute, right? Because I want to be respectful, but I am knocking them out of the park. Oh dear. Let me just give you for instance, G flat. That's my general bottom note.
G flat.
G flat is the bottom note. Yeah.
Anyway, hello everybody. I saw you were live. You rarely put a link out there, Jeff, so I had to come in.
Yeah, that was my thing.
I'm trying to make the posting of the link, if I cover something at the top of the show, getting the join thing in here to get people to jump in if they want, just to make it kind of an open call-in show. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that you had the special guest of our dear leader, I had to come in and give my czar of taste view of durian fruit.
Yes. Did I get a czar title on your Discord? Did you make me a czar? Somebody was czar of potato. I don't think I
don't remember what I'm a czar of. Anyway,
I know that Brian is czar of condiments because Coleman's mustard. He and I had a whole Coleman's mustard riff.
Yeah,
I don't think I made you a czar of anything yet.
I think I was a czar
propaganda.
Of propaganda.
Yeah.
Propaganda czar. Cool.
Right. Well, if you're going to be a czar, go in style. That's what I say. Go in.
Oh, geez, we're just calling you out for being full of shit, son.
Advertise it to the max. Posters everywhere.
The guy that's in charge of propaganda is the first one with a target on him, right? Like, if there's going to be a revolution, like, hey, you're the one that's been spinning all this crap, right? Like, oh shit, no, you want to talk to the condiments guy? It was all about the mustard.
Exactly. You could always get out of it if you've got propaganda on your side. Yeah,
it was big mustard all along.
Everything's propaganda.
What is so special about Coleman's mustard?
You can get it in America, but it's have you had Coleman's mustard?
I think I have. I know the label. I'm almost certain
it's a spicy mustard, and you can get it either in liquid state or you can get it as a powder. And it's spicy. It's kind of like a horseradishy spice mustard, and I love the flavor of mustard, and I love spice. So like the Coleman's perfect for like a sausage.
Hang on a second.
I'm thinking like, what about adding a little bit of that to a deviled egg mix? Yeah. Yep.
That would be perfect. But for English food, like if you get a plate of bangers and mash, a side of Coleman's just makes it taste so much better. Because it's a pop. You only need a little bit. It's very intense. Just a dabble do you. But well, my mouth is I'm salivating thinking about it.
Well, you mentioned bangers and mash. My breakfast was Greek yogurt and some nuts and berries. So, way too healthy. Yeah, exactly, Simon. So even I was groaning. It was goji berries and pumpkin seeds too. So the goji berries, I'm just
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You're trying to shit a whole rope.
I hate it when it segments. Hate it. It's a thing for me. Well, this just got demonetized. Well, what are they talking about? Ropes and segments. Like, never mind. Never mind.
Oh, speaking of which, I'm totally going to derail this. There is I think it's AI generated songs on YouTube, and
Oh,
they
no.
are the craziest songs. The album covers look like old school album covers, and they're songs like, I want to take a dump and then stand up and piss on it to cut it in half. And that's like a 1970s ballad,
Wait, that's
like in the
AI
style
generated?
of John Denver. I think so, because I can't imagine people spending the time to do this, because there's so many. It's called obscurest vinyl. That's what it is.
Yes,
Look on
yes.
YouTube for obscurest vinyl.
I saw it. I couldn't believe that
I
somebody
think
had
it's
written
AI
those lyrics.
generated.
Okay.
They might be, but like, I'm so charmed by it. The fact that I've never seen it before makes me think that, like, well, if I don't know about it, it hadn't have happened, right? Somebody must be using AI. So I could happily be wrong, but I'll tell you what, man, those things are fucking crack me up. You Look Like You Need a Fucking Lamp is like a 1970s funk song. And it's a legit song. You look like you need a lamp. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
You know, that actually reminds
These songs are so good.
I got a lamp I need to pick up this weekend. This guy, are you a Brute or Old Spice guy? I am a Stetson man. No, I'm not.
No, Old Spice. Old Spice is forever. Old Spice is the smell of leather, musk, and freedom.
The best one that I've smelled in the cheaper old school fragrances, if you want to know, my personal favorite out of those older ones is it's a tie, either Polo, the green bottle, because that's a classic. But if you want something cheaper that almost no one knows about, it's a Spanish cologne called Quorum. It's an eau de toilette. It doesn't last that long. You can splash it on throughout the day. It smells fantastic, and you can get it for like $15. It smells like something. It smells like some of the ones that are like, $50, $60. If you find it on Amazon or something like that, but it's old fashioned.
Polo is classic. Polo is classic. Yeah. I do Sauvage as well, and I have Polo, Sauvage, and what's the other one? Sean John. Sean John is completely different than the other ones. The other ones have like a very, I don't know, I'm going to say powder fragrance profile, whereas the Sean John one is just like a completely different world. Like, think of like sandalwood on one end and like, I don't even know how to fucking, like, baby powder on the other end. And like the Sean John thing is just this really crisp, weird, like, it's just a dabble do you.
I'm kind of curious though.
Expensive. I mean, how do you powder a baby? Ooh, dear.
Well, you need babies to make the powder.
Yeah,
you create the powder from the babies.
Yeah.
After you get all the oil out of them for baby oil.
You stew them in Coleman's mustard, and this alchemy happens.
There we go. There we go.
Produces Sean John Collins. No. Yeah. It's all part of the. QAnon was right. The Sauvage thing. I have Sauvage Elixir, a sample of that, and I was blown away. That stuff smells fantastic because it smells like a combination of Polo and like some of the newer stuff. But I when I got it, I sprayed 5 times, and I think I cracked it.
What are you from Jersey? Oh no!
They had said it was going to
5 times.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I got into my car and it was starting to expand and explode. And then I stepped into my parents' place and somebody passed out. They're like, "What the?" They're like, "Why do you smell like a nightclub?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got some kind of strong on it. I heard it was, but I didn't know." And I think my brother came out. And he's like, "You smell like a Jersey pimp." I was like,
"You smell like Chris Mowdy."
I've never worn the original one, and I've never worn the Parfum. Only the Elixir, and the Elixir it's great. It's expensive.
Wouldn't it be good if you could get a kit? This is something for you to design here, Christopher. A kit which basically allows you to go for a workout. Then put your sweat into something, and then make a deodorant.
Dip a cinnamon stick in it, shake it, let it.
Do you know what I mean? Just have your own deodorant smell from your pheromones or whatever they are. I don't know what they're called. That'd be great. And then you could just spray it on, go for a date, and go, "Hey, would you like my aftershave, my perfume aftershave?" And she'd either go yes,
of the time,
or
it
she'd
works
go
every
no.
time.
Well, she'd either go yes or no, and that way you wouldn't have to pay for the meal. You
smell like a pig that's been covered in rancid butter. What's wrong with you?
Save you a fortune.
I think my favorite part is Simon's trying to come with a deodorant that comes out of your odor. Like, I'm still trying to. Do I have to carry the one for that to make sense?
This is not invalid. The French
But
have
you
been
know
doing
it
this
does
forever.
when you know it does when you talk about not paying for the meal. You see, that's when it makes sense.
I'm just picturing Simus is wringing out a sweaty T-shirt into a bottle and then adding some Dawn soap.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's how
Spritz,
you do it.
spritz.
Yeah.
Like, you smell like funk and flowers. Like, yeah, that's how I wrote.
That's right,
it's
baby.
better than-
Smack 'em, yak 'em.
Well, no, it's better than holding their head under your armpit. You go, smell that. Smell that.
There's nothing better than holding someone's head under your armpit, Simon. Don't fucking lie.
You only
You've
do
done
that
it
to
as
your
well.
kids, or nieces and nephews if you're fighting. Like, yeah, get in there. Oh god.
Yeah, my brother used to do that.
See, I was born with a third
And
hole
I
in
love
my
him.
ear that fills with cheese. And every once in a while, the pressure's too much, so I have to dig out the cheese, and it smells like funk. So I would love to
You're not
bottle my
joking,
ear
are you?
cheese.
Smells
That's
like me. Okay.
that's too much. That's just too much. This is getting demonetized so quickly.
So real quick,
Uh,
I'm in a band. I just started. A friend of mine needs a bass player for his band, so I'm in the band and blah blah blah. And the lead singer's like, "Oh, let's do like something on Facebook, fun facts." And so they're like, "Tell us something about you that we wouldn't know." And I put that ear thing in. And the singer was like, "Is there anything else about you that nobody should know?"
Is that really the definition of fun? I don't know.
It is.
Is it
I
fun?
think that's what makes me funky. Is that I got fucking funk cheese growing in my fucking head.
don't you? I mean, have you noticed
Only
that
in
kind of
France.
stuff? It increases as you age.
Oh, yeah.
the stuff that comes off you. I mean, I never understood the expression "dusty old man" or "dusty behind the ears" until I hit like 44, and then I was like, "Shit!" I'm just like, half of me is drier than it should be, and the other half is more moist than it should be, and none of it smells great. Like,
That was fantastic. Half of me is drier.
Spooky says that Simus is a notoriously cheap date. Fact.
Yeah,
I
he's
believe
not
that.
wrong. He's not wrong.
It doesn't. Yeah, it sounds like he's on to
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I like to weed out the gold diggers right at the beginning.
Do you like the smell of my musk? What? My musk. Do you like the smell of it? Like, well, I think you stink. Perfect. Get out.
Yeah. I wear an aftershave. Called
Mission
Funk.
accomplished.
That's some very rare ingredients. Funk.
What? Yeah, Simus Funk. What is this? Well, it's a little bit like Canyon Stank, but with a little bit more of a UK twist.
Yeah.
I don't know why he hasn't done that. Elon Muskie. Why
like
not?
Huh?
He should. And it smells like.
If he's watching, you know what he's going to be doing.
I mean, what would he go for?
Elon?
I mean, yeah, it would probably be like
Elon,
burning
the new-
rubber.
The new Musk.
There is a fragrance called Fat Electrician, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the company that makes it. It's a French fragrance house, and it's supposed to be evocative of like an electrician from like the late 70s. They like to have this whole narrative behind it. There is a burning plastic smell in the profile, like burning wires or like kind of like partially melted vinyl built. It's sort of like not vanilla, but kind of this like. Yeah, it doesn't smell bad. I naturally I can't wear it because the vanilla comes out and then I just smell like, somebody melted a Tupperware
Fucking
bowl on the
cupcake.
stovetop. Yeah, it's just gross. But yeah, if you spray it on a piece of paper or something like that, let it sit out and air out. It's weird. Like somebody makes one.
Somebody just made a Philadelphia fragrance, and apparently it smells like it has hints of like Rita's water ice and weed. And like it's supposed to capture Philly, so I thought
Really?
that was, yeah.
Well, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it just came out like a month ago. Like if you look up Philadelphia the fragrance, it should come up.
Huh. I wonder if they'd ever do that with like New Orleans. It just smells like the muddy Mississippi and clam juice.
Well, Cajun seasoning. I'll take
Yeah.
Cajun seasoning all day.
When I first went I was in New Orleans in '97, and as soon as I stepped out of the cab, I was like, everything smells like crab boil. Everything everywhere. Yeah.
That's a very special place.
Vanilla equals beaver ass. Actually, beaver ass is called castoreum, and that's a very different scent profile.
Yeah, it is.
and you can get that in some. Well, you can't get the natural stuff anymore because they banned it. But I can't remember what they call its artificial equivalent is. Sort of like what's the stuff that they used to use?
Like the civet musk.
They used to use civet musk. They used castoreum comes from beavers. The civet musk, I think they just call civet. The ambergris is now ambroxan. Ambroxan is the artificial replacement for that. It's supposed to be used to boost everything. And it's a smell I like, but I'm kind of curious. Like, I wonder what ambergris actually smells like, but it's not worth getting it. Like what they have to do to a whale to extract that it's not worth it.
I still can't understand why no one has come out with the WD-40 scent. I love the smell of WD-40, and it smells good on me.
It smells good on me. That was great.
Well, unfortunately, I think it's cancerous if you wear it on your skin, but maybe just get get some kind of patch and then just spray it on there.
Negligible risk, no problem.
My dad used to always smell like WD-40.
I turned on to this technique to make your perfume last. Now, like, even though I work with fragrances, I'm not like a perfume guy, even though I know a little bit about it. So somebody just turned me on to this. Like, you just take a little jar of Vaseline and spray like 5 sprays of your shit in there and stir it around, and then just a dab'll do you. Well, first of all, never do 5 sprays of fucking anything, Jeff. So let's start there.
Hang on. There's one from La Nuit de l'Homme from YSL. You need about 20 of that stuff. It smells great, but it's really light and it fades in about 90 minutes, and it's expensive as shit. So yeah, every once in a while you run across that, but you never need more. I don't think the only time you would need 5 or more sprays of Sauvage is if you are looking to cause people to evacuate an open air concert. That's the only
I don't
time
even do a full spray. I do a half a spray on my wrist. I rub it in, put it on my neck, and I'm done.
Well, that's
it's like it's so strong. Also, I'm from Jersey, so like the last thing I want to do is like be preceded by an aroma vapor. You know what I mean? Because that's so Dago. It's such a fucking Jersey Dago thing.
Let's see. Yeah. I'm a pasty, chubby white guy in Michigan, so I like stepping into a place dressed all in black and smelling like a Middle Eastern restaurateur. And there's why does this man smell like frankincense? And like, what's wrong with you? Like.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, that's given me an idea for your next encounter with Darth Dawkins, Christopher. Doesn't have to be Taylor's hand. Not Taylor's ham, just people wearing scent in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. So instead of getting him on the Corporal Taylor ham thing, I'm going to ask him what fragrance he wears. What fragrance do you think Darth Dawkins wears? I think it's Drakkar Noir.
I have no idea.
I think that's an insult to Drakkar Noir. I think he wears Kuros.
No,
I think he's too cheap to wear.
Kuros is
he either wears Drakkar Noir or Joop, Joop.
Oh,
those were the fragrances of 1982 through 87.
I mean, maybe he's still got an old bottle of he's got an old bottle of Canoe somewhere, maybe, but Canoe is understated. So I think. Yeah, I don't know.
Or wait, say Tommy Hilfiger had a fragrance that was super popular too, so maybe he wears Tommy.
Well, and then again, Polo. Well, no, Polo Green I think came out in what 91? No, older than that. I think it's 87. I think it came out in the late 80s. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, I mean, of course, college kids used to wear those fragrances to make them seem older, but now the fragrance just reminds me of college kids because I used to play bars and stuff, right? So like all the college kids, all the dudes, all the chads were trying to be fancy, wearing their polo and looking good. So like polo just smells like college bars to me anymore.
Yeah, for me it was. But when I was going to school, it was pretty much all like. Well, even before I went to school, by the time I graduated from high school, it was Calvin Klein Eternity or Escape or David off Cool Water. That for some reason was everywhere. You could smell that stuff all over the place. And then Calvin Klein, the CK1. Every mall
was super popular.
Every mall in Michigan after that came out smelled like CK1. Like you couldn't go anywhere without it. I am not a Michigan Wolverine fan. I'm not really that into college sports, but I did not go to that school, so I'm not supposed to be a fan of them. I will root for them over. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I root for them over Ohio State, but not always. It just depends.
Since I'm in this
I
crowd,
think.
and I've had this long-standing question that's just been bothering me for, I don't know, 3 to 5
Could I,
years now.
before you go, Richard, could I just answer
Sir.
the last question? Because I just wanted to get my thing in there. So Dove Dawkins in his deodorant, I think he'd probably wear something contradictory, like brute facts. Go ahead. Sorry, Richard. I know it's cheesy, but when I say
good.
I got to think
It
of
was
him.
good.
That was a little bit of a waltz for a little pun there. I like that. That's good.
Recently, I've noticed probably women 30 through 60 are wearing something that to me smells like black pepper. Would someone please explain this to me?
It might be Delina, but Delina's kind of flowery. I don't know. I don't know what's really popular. Delina is like a TikTok fragrance. It's from Parfum de Marly. It's all over the place. I had a sample of it that I got
How does he
for
know this?
my mom.
How does he know all of this stuff, Jeff?
That's why I talked to this man. This is why.
It might be that one, but yeah, there's a couple. If it's black pepper, it's not going to be anything in the Chanel family, probably. That's the one thing I can tell you. So, but yeah, I mean, if you check like TikTok for something like that to see what's kind of trending, you might find it. I don't know. I got into the stuff about a year and a half ago or so. I got really bored and went down a rabbit hole of weird fragrance stuff and learned a lot and learned, well, you know, there's a lot of BS. But yeah. Actually, that's what I did for Mother's Day. I bought my mom something that I know that she liked. She had a sample of it. She was like, "Hey, I really like that." I got her a small bottle of that. I got one for my sister, which the one I got for her smells fantastic. It's also a little pricey, but yeah, we'll see.
You know, and the best part is the fragrance is only like a quarter of an ounce, and then it's just filled with alcohol. Like the actual fragrance is like it's mostly
dual
diluent.
usage.
I got a story about that though. There was one sample that I got. I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Amouage. They're a Qatari or Oman. I can't remember where they're out of, but it's a Middle Eastern fragrance house. And I get this sample of it, and it's called Reflection 45. And I was like, okay, this looks good. Take a sniff of the end of it. I'm like, well, this smells fantastic. I spray about 4 sprays of this stuff on me after the shower.
What are you doing?
4 is about standard. Yeah, that's fine.
Who the fuck taught you how to use cologne?
1, 2,
Jesus Christ.
1, 2, 3, 4. That was it, right?
He had an interesting dating history when he was a teenager, Chris.
Yeah, very little. Yeah, because I stunk.
I guess.
Trying to cover up a lot of. So, and then I notice I'm like standing there. I put these on and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting for this to dry out, and it's not. And then I just see this like what looks like somebody threw like WD-40 on me, and I'm like, why is there a sheen on me? And then I read it, and it's like, oh, it's a super extract. It's 45% perfume oil. Like I probably should have gone with one spray. That stuff, I can still, the shirt that I wore still smells like that. It's been laundered many, many times. It actually says on the bottle, do not spray on clothing, will stain. Like I bought Middle Eastern gasoline and put it on myself.
Yeah,
I got a lot of,
it comes in a fucking lead container that you have to wear special gloves.
Yeah. I wore it. My brother was here. My brother was here from California, and I walk into the house. He's staying at my folks' place. I walk into the house, and he's awake. My younger sister's there, and I step in there, and I walk past them, and my sister's like, "Man, that smells good. Whatever you got on." And she's like, "Jay, did you catch a whiff of that?" And he's like, "No." And then it hits him. He's like, "Oh my God!" And typical Jay, I think he said I smelled like a perfume harlot or something like that. And I was like, he hated it. But I was like, yeah. I put too much on. so, oh well.
That's great.
Yeah, I didn't realize as well. One of the things that I came across, I gave up smoking. What is it now? 8 years ago, and it took a couple of years, but eventually, I got my smell back, and I started walking around the streets and things, realizing that I'd missed a lot of things. So I'd walk past some flowers, and I go, "Oh, I can smell the flowers." I didn't know flowers smell like that. I mean, I knew they smelled, of course, but not when you're walking through a city. But yeah, no, they actually smell. And then going into the city itself, the different shops that you go in, right? If you go into like a high-end department store, and it's all very, this is all very smells nice, doesn't it? Whereas you go into like pound shop or the dollar store, and you go, oh, this is a bit, oh, you know what I mean? It's amazing, just through lack of smoking. Never realized, never knew,
Oh yeah.
or had any idea. Same with food, Christopher. I
Oh,
started
yeah.
cooking for ages. This is why I came in the first place, because you were talking about cooking. So I started cooking again for the first time in a few years,
Nice.
because I can't get down to the kitchen. So I thought I eventually bought myself an upstairs bedroom kitchen, and so I started cooking again, and it
Good.
is amazing, just amazing.
When you can smell.
Yeah, when you can smell
Yeah.
and you can taste, because I don't smoke, so I
Yes.
can taste the food. I mean, do you realize how
Yes.
little salt I have to put in things now?
Oh yeah,
I-
You don't
I-
have to
I-
season it as much.
Yeah.
The only thing that I miss about smoking, I don't miss the added, the increased blood pressure, the insomnia, the other physical side effects. I certainly don't miss like stinking like it, but I miss the flavor. I miss the
Okay.
taste
Is that
of it.
right?
Yeah,
Tobacco
I actually
flavor?
I like, and I do like, I found this out too when I started looking into like fragrances and stuff. I really like tobacco based fragrances. I like that smell.
Mhm.
But I do
There
not
is a
miss smoking
perfumer
at all.
out of New York.
Weird.
There's a perfumer out of New York called Demeter, Demeter, and they cut their teeth in the fragrance world by making a dirt fragrance, which you can purchase, which is fantastic. It smells like fucking dirt, right? So that's like a geosmin kind of smell. And they have crazy fragrances like the ones that you're talking about. Like they aside from dirt, they also have like thunderstorm or leather or tobacco. They have like 5 different tobacco fragrances: pipe tobacco, old pipe tobacco, like, you know, a whole bunch of different things. And it's pretty remarkable how you can isolate those fragrances. I saw somebody earlier wrote something about the smell of books. There are articles about why
Mhm.
books smell the way they do, like libraries, the paper, like all this stuff. And
There
it's
is a fra-
awesome how. Go ahead.
There's a fragrance based on that, yeah, on books.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think
can't
that's
remember the-
awesome.
Is it to do with mold?
No, it's a very specific chemical that I can't remember the name of, but
Oh,
it's just
okay.
like the smell of books is like mostly this one thing. How do they bottle
My-
thunderstorm?
My guess is it's
Well,
petrichor, right?
No. So when you combine their Demeter's thunderstorm with their dirt, you get petrichor.
Sweet. I love that smell.
I mean, it is exactly petrichor. It's like walking outside right before or right after it had rained.
Yeah.
Yes.
That ozone-y smell with like earth notes, and it's really hot. It's really good.
Oh
What
god, they've
about,
got one. They've got one called Brownie that would destroy me.
Oh, you're on the website?
Yeah, they just
you can-
flashed. Brownie is terrible. Whew. Sorry, I'm not a brownie fan. So
No, I love brownies, but I don't
Most
like
people
chocolate
do.
fragrances.
yeah, I don't
Oh,
think I
you
could go
mean
for
the food? Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Back to baby oil again. Yeah.
I thought brownie like in like Fae folk. Are you talking about like the the Fae, the fairies?
I don't know who Demolished Doctrine is, but your timing on that last thing that you said was perfect. Oh fuck!
This is
I'm
Richard,
I'm
by the way.
Richard, and I'm Beck's older brother.
Oh, I know you, Richard. We've talked
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
What about the smell of freshly cut grass? Is there a
They have one.
Yeah,
oh,
that's chlorophyll.
chlorophyll? Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
In fact,
But,
if you
Not
if you-
chloroform, chlorophyll.
No, I was going to
Very-
say that's
very important
That's
distinction.
another one
yeah.
of Darth Dawkins' favorite.
Oh, oh, yeah. I don't like chloroform, but I like the way it smells.
But I like to use it.
Yeah. 60% of the time it works every
100% of the time.
100% of the time.
I don't like cocaine. I just like the way it smells.
Yeah, I
goodness
remember the
gracious.
80s. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Oh,
So I remember. So in the 80s, I had a friend who had an IROC Z, and he introduced me to the fragrance Drakkar Noir. And his technique was to douse himself in it. He was Puerto Rican. He had this really nice IROC Z that we used to ride around in because he had an Alpine stereo in it. And he was just saturated in Drakkar Noir. And he would say, like, so when you put on cologne, man, you got to put a lot on. So, like, that's why Drakkar Noir is, like, embedded in my fucking brain as the fragrance from the 80s. Driving around in an IROC Z, reeking of Drakkar Noir. Like, how much more 80s do you get except, like, my name in neon lights, you know?
Oh.
Jesus.
Yeah. My younger brother, for whatever reason, had that. I don't know how he got into it. One day I saw it and I was like, why do you have a bottle of Drakkar Noir? Have you been watching like Miami Vice or something? And he just
He starts wearing
decided,
blazers, rolling up the sleeves.
I don't know,
Turquoise
somebody,
tank top underneath.
and he, you know, actually one of my, it might have been like my sister-in-law or something. Somebody got him it for Christmas or something like that. And he just started wearing it. And I was like, oh, you don't seem like the perfume guy. Now he definitely isn't. He does not like fragrances. When I show up, with 12 sprays of Sauvage Elixir on, he's the first one to dive out a window.
It's going up. It's going
See,
up.
people like you is why I smoke cigarettes.
And you're married, right? Is that right, Jeff?
No, I'm not. No.
Oh, I
No.
beg your pardon. Okay, well,
If I were
Turns
married,
it-
I'd wear 20 just to impress
gonna
her.
say.
Like, oh yeah, I'm trying to keep the relationship fresh. She's like, I'm nose blind to everything now. Everything. I can't smell a thing.
yeah.
But to your
Yeah.
point, Simus, not smoking or quitting smoking, like Shannon was a smoker and she gave it up like 5 years ago. Like she has turned into a fucking X-Man whose superpower is smell. Like because because she was working in as a medical assistant at an orthopedic place, like people who came in who smoked, who would lie about not smoking, she was just like, no, you're lying to me. Like she's like, I could tell if somebody who smoked walked into the building next door. Like we'll be hanging out outside and it's almost like, oh, the person in the car 50 feet away from us just lit up a cigarette. Like her ability to smell things is like from another goddamn planet.
Mine.
And so your sense of smell when you smoke just goes out. But also, here's my PSA for everybody: flavor is mostly smell. So when you get congested or when you can't smell, it's not that things taste different because your taste buds are still working. Salty, sweet, bitter, umami, salty. Those are still working. But when you don't get that aroma going to your nasal receptors, there's no flavor, right? So if you put a jelly bean in your mouth, your tongue will tell your brain that it's sweet, but you don't know if it's grape sweet or cherry sweet or raspberry unless the molecules make their way up to your nose. So when you're a smoker, all of the olfactory bits are deadened, and some of the taste ones as well, but mostly the olfactory ones. So the thing you're talking about, Simus, where like food tastes different, stores smell different. It's like all of a sudden, all of the things that were getting in the way of your olfaction are going away. So now the baseline has been risen because there's nothing stamping down on your perception.
Let me just say one thing. If Shannon was there, I'd say it to her, but you can say this to her later, which is one of the things that I did when I realized that I had this superpower of smelling people smoking, right? Because the guy downstairs, right, said, "Oh, I'm not smoking in the house," and I went, from my bed, right? I'd wake up in the morning, and go, "Oh, he's smoking in the house. I can tell, right?" Even though I've got a blocked door and I've got like guards to stop the smoke getting in and all of the rest of it, right? So I realized I kind of, when I first went, oh, I've got this superpower, the first thing that went through my mind is all of the times that I'd lied to my parents about not smoking when I was a kid.
Right? Oh my God.
No, don't smoke. No.
Well, within a couple of years of Shannon and I being together, we were talking, I work in a lab that studies smell, this, that, and the other. And then after she quit smoking, she was like, when I was in high school, I used to go out for lunch, smoke a cigarette, and then blow it into my jacket to hide it. And I was like, so you went back to school just as a cigarette sponge? And she was like, yeah, but I didn't know. I thought I was hiding it.
She smelled like a Denny's in the early 90s. Yeah.
Oh yeah. She's blowing the smoke into her jacket. So she's like, why are you even outside?
Yeah. Let me
amazing, isn't it?
I think I found something for Simus. Maybe. Let me read these notes to you. This is a fragrance from a company in Romania, right? company's called Tuscavat. These are the notes on this, and then I'll read you what they call it. The notes are gunpowder, ozone, blood, iodine, flowers, just flowers, gaiac wood, concrete, and rain. The fragrance is called Inexcusable Evil.
Okay. Yeah.
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 That is a hell of a
I was-
title for anything. Yeah.
I was going to guess World War II, but
I heard somebody, there was somebody
Inexcusable
that I saw do this. He broke it open and he was like, this smells like blood and metal. It smells just like blood and metal. It's terrifying.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I lost a girlfriend over a smell like that once. Oh, yeah, I know. I told her not to go in for 10 minutes, but you know.
You might want to let that
Jesus.
air out. Yeah.
Yeah. You know. Anyway, there we go. Man, that's amazing. One of the other things I realized how much my dad didn't want a confrontation because he knew that I was smoking, obviously, in hindsight. So, I mean, and I just kind of went away going, wow, he never, once I said no a couple of times, he never questioned it again. And I was like, well, yeah, he did love me. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, my folks didn't they didn't seem to, well, I mean, my mom did more, I think, than my dad did, but it wasn't until after I quit that I realized how much that stuff lingered on a person, because mine did the same thing that your wife's did. I mean, mine really got attuned to it, and so if my brother was around and he still smokes, he doesn't smoke as much as he used to, but if it's in his clothes and stuff like that, I can practically, I can tell when he would arrive at my place or my parents' place. I could smell him before he got out of his car. Practically, I'm like, oh, he's here. The only thing that would throw that off is if a neighbor was smoking next door. I mean, it would just the stupid brain was looking for it. I think you find a cigarette and inhale it.
When my boy comes over, I can tell if he smoked before he got on the bus to come here or after he got off the bus to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that I can tell how fresh the smoke is.
Yep.
Right? Is it 20 minutes old or is it 5 minutes old?
Yeah.
Oh, you're like a fucking bear. Bear sense of smell is not just somebody was here. Their sense of smell is like this specific animal was here 4 days ago, standing on 3 of its 4 legs while praying to Jesus. Like a bear's sense of smell, just like its world. It's able to do spatial temporal analysis based on smell instead of just like, oh, somebody was here and pissed. No,
they smell in the same way Daredevil senses everything. Yeah, that's that.
Yes.
That.
Bears are Daredevil of the forest.
They take a whiff and they can tell you what day of the month you were born. Like, oh yeah.
Virgo.
Yeah, you smell like January. Like, how did you know? Like, the stench of January is all over you. That and cigarettes.
The stench of
You guys.
I remember when I first met Shanna, she smoked indoors. And, because I'm a non-smoker, she was trying to she wasn't smoking as much and she cleaned things up. I remember walking in her door and I was like, you smoke indoors, huh? She's like, you can tell? I was like, oh, baby.
Yeah.
I was 10 feet away from your front door and I knew that you smoked indoors. She's like, really? I was like, oh man. And then now that she doesn't smoke, she's like, I can't fucking believe you used to kiss me on the lips.
Yeah, exactly.
A completely different. She's like, you must really love me fucking making out with an ashtray. I was like, I do love you.
Yeah. There you go. That's proof. And you wouldn't do it otherwise, right?
Then you could give her taste notes. Well, back then there was the nicotine, and then there was the you just go through the list. You've just removed one flavor note, that's fine. It's better.
Oh dear. What a fantastic story. What a fantastic story.
Lovely, I say. Speaking of trying to hide fragrances from your parents, I remember the first time I got shit hammered. Snuck out of the house, drank some Jack Daniels with some friends, came home and got sick. Like, of course, when you're young, you don't realize Jack Daniels has a very specific smell. Any adult, should they cross some Jack Daniels, will be able to go, oh, there is some Jack Daniels, right? So, of course, I'm obliterated. And my dad comes in and he's just like, what the fuck were you drinking last night? And I was like, oh, I wasn't drinking anything. He's like, Jack Daniels, huh? You fucking whacked on Jack Daniels. I'm like, no, Dad, I wasn't drinking at all. Meanwhile, I had puked all over my waterbed, right? My room just like, I'm just emanating. I'm volatilizing fucking Jack Daniels in the whole bottom floor of our house. And my dad's like, you're a fucking drunk asshole. And I'm like, no, Dad, it wasn't anything. And then my mom fucking takes me to buy a drum kit, because I've been busting on her. I was like, I want a drum kit. I have my money for a drum kit. Cool, cool, cool. What day does she decide to do it? The day I'm fucking hungover for the first time in my life on Jack Daniels. She's like, hit that cymbal. Hit it harder. Hit it again. Is this the drums that you want? Play longer. Play louder. I was like, I think this is great, Mom. I don't want to play drums anymore.
Can I get
The
one
great
that's
thing
made
about
out?
Jack Daniels, sorry. The great thing about Jack Daniels is if you vomit it up, you didn't really change it any. It still smells precisely the same.
It's exactly the same. Yeah.
That's White Castle. Smells the same going in as it does coming out.
Did you end up getting a drum set made out of pillows and like cymbals covered in velvet?
I didn't. I got the drum kit, but I did not assemble that shit until the next week.
I was gonna
That took
say,
a while.
did you still get it,
that
or
shit
did
to
you
get
come
out of
home
my
with a
system.
bass? That would have been my question.
No, I got a drum kit. I got a drum kit. But yeah, just like the naivety, like, oh no,
Yeah.
my parents won't know, right? Like, no, like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we're stupid. So like the person who brought the Jack Daniels was just like, I don't know, like my dad has a bar, and I just grabbed the first thing, like, yeah, okay, Jack Daniels, that's what we're gonna drink. Like, yeah, exactly.
I did the same thing as well. I worked at a bar. I mean, I could only have been I was probably 18, something like that. So someone said to me, "Oh, I've got to go and work at this bar, but we can go out afterwards, and do whatever." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And he says, "Well, he's looking for help, so you'll pay you a little bit if you come down and help us." So I said, "Yeah, all right, I'll do that since I've got to wait anyway." So I went down, waited, and I thought, well, I'm getting paid, but it's not very much. So I think I'll help myself to a bottle of Jack Daniels. So I thought, yeah, fine. He's not going to notice. You know what I mean? There's a lot of alcohol going out. Of course, afterwards he goes, there has been a bottle of Jack Daniels gone missing. Is it any of you guys? And we're all, no. No. And he went, oh, all right then. And of course, my mate never got employed again by him. But we went off. And so we got on the bike, right? Got on my motorbike, went off, picked a shitload of mushrooms, then put the mushrooms into just poured the bottle of Jack Daniels into a cooking pot, right? Put the mushrooms in there, simmered it away for maybe 30 minutes or something like that. Okay, till half of the Jack Daniels had gone. Okay, then
That sounds horrible.
Strained it off, right, and drank Jack Daniels. All of us were tripping for 12 hours straight, just drinking this Jack Daniels with magic mushrooms in.
You infused psilocybin into Jack.
Yeah, it was great. It was. Have you
ever seen a horror movie called Mandy? Because it sounds like what you did is the horror movie Mandy. Which, if you ever get an opportunity to watch it, you'll blame me for recommending it. I mean,
it's a hell of a way to take magic mushrooms. That's all I'm saying.
Holy crap!
Really
well, hey,
works.
if we're recommending movies, I recommend everybody watch the documentary Zoo. That's all I'm gonna say.
Zoo.
I've heard of the film, but I don't know what it's about. So.
What am I looking up? Sorry.
Well, put it on incognito, brother.
Okay.
Gonna look that up later.
The documentary is about people who go zoo. If you know what that means, that's what this documentary is about.
I'm not going to look it up because I've been told not to look it up. So I am not going to.
Jeff is doing it for you. So
yeah, no, I don't know.
We're just waiting for Jefferson to read through it enough to give us the summary. What are you doing, bub? Look at Jefferson's face. That is the face of somebody who is reading the exact website that I think he's reading.
I'm actually not finding it. So
really?
Yeah.
Zoo. Oh man, hold on a second.
Is it a similar precis to Crash? Is it about couples that go into gorilla cages and make love?
Similar. So Zoo is just like animal fuckers, and going zoo is what it's called when you prefer fucking animals instead of people. And
It's a documentary about bestiality.
It's a documentary about horse fuckers, yes, but you don't know it's about bestiality until like 40 minutes in, because the whole setup is this guy and his life and what he does, and then 40 minutes in, you're like, I love me Bessie. Bessie gets nice and juicy wet when I go outside. That's why I know that she loves me. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
We're wrapping up the show now, folks. Time to take this off air.
Oh dear! Now I tell you, just
the after show is gonna be blue as hell.
Just think about what deodorant he probably uses afterwards to cover it up for his missus.
Sauvage elixir. It's the only thing strong enough to cover that.
Yeah. A whole bottle in
Jack
one go.
Daniels simmered down and psychedelic mushrooms.
Here, you all need to spray the Sauvage elixir directly on your upper lip, and then drink a cup of this, and then now evaluate the situation. Welcome to the movie, Mandy. Right, I am going to take this offline because I've been on for nearly 2 hours. But with that, I mean, nothing's going to top a documentary recommendation like that. If you look up the documentary, folks, please use Firefox on incognito as your browser of choice. Be very careful.
But you can rent it from Netflix. I think I rented it from Netflix. Like, it was a streaming service that I watched it on. So it's available.
You saw this on purpose?
Yes, because somebody did what I did, except they didn't fill in any of the things. They're just like, hey, you like documentaries? Look up a zoo. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like a fucking idiot. I was with my second wife at the time. We start watching this, and 30 minutes in, she's like, what the fuck are we watching? I don't know. But there's another hour and a half, so shut up.
Yeah.
I do have an anecdote about this, but it is not safe for broadcast. So I will tell you guys about it as soon as we go up. So thanks everybody for joining.
If I saw it, it's only because I thought it was the Zoolander 2. I confused the title. That's all.
It's one of the Zoolander movies, right? It's very different from that. Very different. Marty, good to see you. Unfortunately, I'm getting out of here. We're gonna wrap this up, folks. Thanks everybody for showing up. Apologies, this one's a little shorter than last week's marathon, but I did cover most of the side-eye content at the beginning, going over some of Pine Creek stuff. So if you've got any suggestions, comments, hateful rants, email me at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com, or I'm on Twitter, X if you're nasty. With that, I think we're ready to get out of here. So I'm going to play us out, but I do want to give a special thanks to Demolished Doctrine, Richard, Christopher Mowdy, and Simon Funk for coming on as guests today. Thank you guys both very much, all three of you very much. And do you guys have anything that you want to, promote or anything coming out?
Yeah.
No, keep watching Jefferson's Patchcock.
Yeah, I've got a new deodorant. I'm going to call it Debunk.
Try to be brave and love each other.
That's good advice. It's much better advice than what Simus just recommended. If anybody's interested in the production methods that Simus, rewind about 45 minutes back. You'll be terrified. It's a little bit like this documentary that I'm about to watch, because I'm not going to be able to not watch it. So
you have to.
Apologies to everyone, and thank you all.
Me some Betty. I love that quote. That's a great quote.
All right, folks. Thank you all again. I will catch you all next time, probably midweek, with hopefully another, some kind of criticism to throw out there. We will catch you all later. Take care. Have a great weekend.